Ava, why didn't you wake me earlier?
Oh, trust me, I tried. But you told me to go away, so...
Fine. You're right. It's my fault.
Boy, if you don't get in here so we can get this show started.
The war arc is probably like slightly below the Pain Invasion arc to me. It's like the second best arc.
The thing about the war arc is that, like, if you consider all those chapters a single arc, you can find the best stuff from Naruto in those chapters, and also the worst stuff from Naruto.
I don't know, like that's the arc, especially the anime fleshes it out really well, to where one of my big complaints for Shippuden was the side characters got shafted. And then in the war arc in the anime in particular, they don't. They get like moments to shine. Brief moments, but moments nevertheless. I think that's pretty cool. You get the 7 Ninja Swordsmen, all the reanimated shinobi from the past, big moments that you've been like big payoffs. I always find myself gravitating towards that arc, like first and foremost, even before Pain, which is my favorite arc. It's something about that arc is just so entertaining.
Very glad you said the Pain arc was your favorite. You spitting facts.
Oh yeah, it's just the philosophy stuff in there that you can kind of draw from it. You know, it's the most tragic thing. Boruto, Mitsuki, and Sarada solos all these like Akatsuki duos. Okay, if I throw Kawaki in there, that'll be overkill. But I'm just gonna throw those 3 in there.
Borushiki.
I mean, yeah.
It's just GG.
This is why people don't like the war arc. Not because of the power clipping. They think it's all one big arc, like I was saying, instead of 3 arcs. But the war arc, even if you do want to consider it one big arc, it doesn't have slow pacing. It does one thing after another. Like, it has some of the greatest highs in all of Naruto, and it's just one after one. It does so many things that it doesn't even have time to visually explain everything that's happening.
Like,
There's
it
just
also
so much
didn't
content.
start off very well, because before Naruto fights Itachi and Nagato, the war arcs not that good. 'Cause you're fighting Genkaku and Kinkaku, you're fighting the 7 Ninja Swordsmen, Kakashi versus Zabuza, I guess there's like that nostalgia.
It was so cool, bro. It was all of it was cool, man. The Genkaku stuff
like,
was so
who cares
dope.
about Hanzo versus Mifune? Who likes that?
I'll give you that one. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll give you that one, the Mifune thing. I think it's interesting if you kind of look in the future with the whole Tsubaki. Yeah, Tsubaki Kurogane. Miss one.
Oh, she's in the Leaf Village.
Yeah, 1/kill. Yeah, that.
Oh, okay. I think I know who she is.
Yeah, but she was trained by Mifune, so that gets pretty interesting.
I mean, Ginkaku and Kinkaku are just probably the 2 most boringest villains in Naruto, and then there's the Asuma versus Shikacho fight, which is a terrible fight.
Yeah, that fight kind of sucked.
That fight has no point.
I like
Asuma
Ginkaku
has
though.
already told him his
At least
last
in the
words.
anime-
Also, Hiyashi versus Hizashi, Tenten versus Kakuzu.
Dude,
Before, like, this part of the arc is actually pretty fast in the manga, which is better.
Yeah, but like I think the whole point of them coming back was to demonstrate the progression of the characters. So I just think they were just too strong at that point. Like
No, but like, I mean,
just
the
couldn't
7 Ninja
contend.
Swordsmen, they didn't even fight the old gen. So
Yeah.
that doesn't really
They
work.
fought
Now, in the case of the Sound 4, yes, that's what that was for. But
Wait, but it doesn't have to
That
be
could've
like
been manga.
it doesn't have to encompass the entirety of the arc. I'm just saying, like, I think the themes when it comes to like the Rookie 9 and so on and so forth, like the Naruto's era people, is just to say, hey, like we've gotten so much stronger, so that's why we're like Kankuro's packing up Sasori so
that didn't
effortlessly.
happen though, because Neji was having trouble with the Zetsu. So
That's why I'm saying it doesn't have
Doesn't
to.
even
It
do
doesn't have
that.
to happen across the board. But when we're talking about like the Akatsuki members that had interactions with certain characters from Naruto's generation, like a Kankuro and a Sasori, or a Kakuzu and Ina Shikacho, that theme is more prevalent. And then you get the Sound Ninja stuff in the anime. So when it comes to the interactions, yeah, it's there. But Neji didn't really have that interaction with Akatsuki like that. And if he did, say Kisame, he just wasn't there in general. So he
yeah,
didn't
that's
have that
actually
moment.
that's probably for Kisame's case.
And the problem
Because,
with
like,
the war
I
arc
think
too
that's a
is
lot
that
of people's problem.
Sakura, like,
it feels like it's just a bunch of
but, like,
fights in sequence. There's no there's no overall strategy that they're implementing. They do a couple of stuff like, oh, this battalion goes there and this here, but it's a literal war. There should have been more strategic planning behind it. Maybe even like
What do
people
you
in the
mean, though?
alliance itself that are not in accord.
Yeah,
with
you
what
know,
they're
here's
doing.
another example.
There was a
I guess,
lot of
like,
strategic
so-
planning though.
So you get like on the bigger scale, there is a huge element of strategy.
No.
If anything, I'd argue this is
No,
the biggest
like
strategy
the
whole-
strategy is the strategy for the entire battalion. Okay, this battalion is gonna go, and it's good. 2 battalions now. They're gonna destroy the Zetsus and the Edo Tensei. So okay, that's like strategy 101, I suppose. Like, yeah, you double your forces, you win. But the problem with that too is that the entire war lasts for 2 days in universe, which is insane. You don't get a sense that the world is in danger in day one, because like there's no time for people to even be afraid of the war, because they don't even see it happening. Like, it would have been much more interesting if the Edo Tensei army and the Zetsu army were attacking actual cities and civilians instead of just a random beach and random forests. And attacking those cities, like, it doesn't have to be a ninja village. It can be a civilian village that they are using as a base. Attacking those cities is a strategic thing for the enemy to do, because then you take the bases, you cut off supply lanes. There's this entire thing about war that's completely neglected.
I feel like we're okay. So they definitely had strategy, but they didn't do some of the things that we think they should. I think that's fine to say, but there's not a single arc in this like entire franchise that employs more strategy and tactics than the war arc in everything that it encompasses. I think we can agree on that, right? The number one, the formations and like who's like the leader of said formations, where you have your close range fighters, your mid range, and then long range ones. That's is strategic. Thing that
also makes absolutely no sense, because they group together the close range fighters and that 20,000 people with range fighters, and then they kind of like, you wouldn't send an entire battalion with one type of troop in a real war. You want some variety. You want an air force. You want the ground force, like to make your attack potency different. Because if you only have one type of fighter in a specific battle, you're gonna get slaughtered by a hard counter. The inception of how the battalions were formed was already
what would have
wrong.
been the hard counter though?
Well, for example, if
you have a bunch of taijutsu fighters, you send in a couple of Edo Tensei.
Like, number one, like most of the battalions, they were comprised of mostly certain types of people, but there were different types in there, right? Like, I think maybe the wild card here would be like the Akatsuki with those, with Kabuto, but when it comes to like the Zetsus, right? Like, those are pretty much one-dimensional entities, and they didn't have too much information about what they could like deploy. And I think the zombies were kind of like something that caught them off guard until they got the intel about that. So when they're like forming their battalions, I don't think they had in mind the zombie army, but I could be completely wrong there. I'm going off of memory.
I don't remember if they knew about the Edo Tensei.
I think they do a good job of dividing it. It's not just all taijutsu members all in one, then all long range fighters all in another. Even if they described that at some point, I don't remember that. But at the very least, that's not how we see it on screen. Like, for example, we see every unit has a few ceiling people. That's just never a problem. And they mostly just group a lot of characters that should be together. For example, Tamari and Gaara are fighting on the same battlefield because they're brother-sister. I think that's more of that dynamic than it is just, oh, they're both long-range fighters. So I think, like, Ino Shikacho, they aren't the same type of fighter, but they're fighting together because that's obvious in terms of writing it anyways.
Yeah, even when, like, Kakashi's going up against the 7 Ninja Swordsman, like, he deploys this tactic to where his body gets taken over and then dude is, like, manipulating it with like a shadow. Like, they have like variety within their units, but the unit has like a focus, like a speciality.
So the thing is, the first company is the mid-range battle unit. The second one is the close-range battle unit. And the thing is, like, they show Kurotsuchi is in this one, so like she has long-range jutsu. So yeah, it's not black and white. And then the third range is the intermediate range battle unit, which is like the healers and stuff. Sakura's in that one.
Yo, even Kakashi and his versatility with his 1,000 jutsu. I mean, that in and of itself, I think he's in a close range unit. That would give that unit
Kakashi
versatility, I believe.
Is in the third one. He's in the intermediate range.
Oh, intermediate. Okay.
He's
okay.
the captain.
Wait, why is Guy and Lee with him?
The fourth unit
then?
is the long-range unit, and the fifth one is the special battle unit. And then there's like the Akimichi, the Inuzukas, the Ino's clan, Yamanaka clan. They are all in this unit with different types of abilities. Guy is in the, I think it's in Kakashi's. It's in the
He's in Kakashi's. Yeah.
That's why I thought they were like the close up unit because of the Guy and Lee.
Yeah, he's the intermediate range.
But my whole point was like they had a strategy when like creating their units, and then like their formations, like when they got hit with adversity, they would make adjustments, right? Like having people flank or so on and so forth, or joining certain battalions, and then also like within those battalions, you had strategies for individuals like Ino Shikacho by Shikamaru's father, or Naruto coming up with strategy.
Shikacho to deal with Kinkaku, who was going ballistic. But the thing is, like, for instance, the advanced squad, like the first squad Kabuto sends with Deidara and Sasori and then Sai's brother, there's this fourth guy who's never appeared in the story before. Like, it's the guy from the West Village. Dude. And like, you're like, who cares about this guy? Like, make somebody more interesting appear here.
Not feel you.
It's just.
But in terms of like the strategy, not only do the heroes have strategy, but like you just mentioned, the villains as well. So that doubles down on it. The whole stuff of like diverting the 10 tails like Biju bomb by using the mud wall or whatever earth style they used to. That shit was pretty clever.
Oh no, yeah, no. There's a lot. I'm more so talking about the macro strategy, like the entire thing about how you move the troops around and that's probably because I'm kind of a nerd about like battlefield tactics and history and stuff, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of too basic for a war between ninjas that have powers and stuff.
Comparison, I think what Daigo means here is not that there is no strategy whatsoever. I think he's saying he wants the fight to be like Neji versus Kidomaru, where there's like a lot of strategy in that particular fight.
It's not even the fight itself, it's more like the macro level. There's no there's no overall strategy that they're implementing.
So Mello, your example didn't work because it's the mud wall that's from like all the battlefields has already combined all 5 battalions, but Daigo Knights is saying, well, all the battalions are sort of going off on their own, even though that's not necessarily the case, because like you were saying, they can back each other up, and that was like the strategy that Inoichi and Shikaku and all of them were developing behind the scenes. That is the macro level, but we don't really see that play out the way that we should have, because it stays on the macro level rather than us being shown it on the micro level. At no point is any battalion ever quote-unquote backed up that I can remember.
No, this happens with Ginkaku.
Like the commando unit joining Kakashi's, or
so I think
the one
maybe the goalpost for this conversation is shifting a little bit, because originally I think it was there's no like little to no strategy in this arc, and then now it's kind of shifting to some other kind of conversation. So what I was responding to was like the initial through line for this particular topic.
There's no there's no overall strategy that they're implementing.
But if we're switching it up, then I can pivot for sure.
Well, no, I definitely think the strategy is just way different from before everyone joins together versus after, because immediately once they do this crazy strategy technique where all 5 battalions basically try and seal the 10 tails, and that's where just all the strategy starts. Like
but that's not where it starts though.
When you combine like different battalion with all those ninjas, this is where I think it's a little bit lacking in the strategy. Like, there certainly are more things you could have done. Like, there are ninjas with barrier jutsus with very interesting techniques that could have like used Tensei Army bands and things like that, but we just never really see that type of stuff. Of course, like the battles themselves, like the 1v1s or the 2v2s or whatever, they're gonna have strategy because they've always had. And then also when they join forces against the 10 tails, that also happens, which I'm very fine with. I actually like a lot when the alliance they use the Shinobi alliance jutsu, whatever Naruto calls that. But the day one of the war arc is definitely the weak part of the war arc for me, except for Kaguya. I don't like Kaguya. That's another story entirely.
Well, I
agree with.
I mean, maybe we can
part 1.
Agree to disagree on this one. That's perfectly fine. I don't know, I just feel like there was a lot of strategy in there, even with the basic stuff. I think what was done was out of utility. Like, don't make broad swings if that's not needed. Like, I think the Akatsuki provided an element of randomness and chaos that they didn't account for, if my timeline is correct. I'm going off of memory. But when it comes to the Zetsu, they're pretty much what you see is what you get. I think the infiltration of the Zetsu is pretty a wild card there, but once they got that licked with Naruto, I mean, it was pretty much curtains for that strategy. And that in and of itself was a strategy.
Akatsuki was an L.
Yeah, I think I cut out. Yeah. But that's all I was saying. I think even with the more smaller scale movements, I think it was out of necessity, out of utility. So even if they didn't do broad sweeping things, I think they did what they needed to, based upon the enemy they were facing. But yeah.
I don't know though. The Chunin exams and Sasuke retrieval arc are 2 really popular ones.
My favorite is the Sasuke retrieval arc.
Yeah, I really like those arcs.
Thank you, same. Absolutely.
The Sasuke retrieval one. kind of grew on me as I got older. But when I was a kid, I hated that arc. It was so boring.
Really? I love that.
Not only is it the end of part 1, I'd argue it's one of the better paced arcs, which is huge for me. I love pacing, especially as a screenwriter. And then it has some of the highest highs of the series, not only in terms of choreography, music, but also just finishing the character arcs. It wraps up everything perfectly.
Like Neji, for example, his fight with Kidomaru is a way bigger moment for Neji than like fighting a white Zetsu or something. You know what I mean? Like
that fight was so boring, bro. Like when I was
I love that.
When I was a kid, like the Kiba stuff, the Shikamaru stuff, like all those fights were so boring. Even the Choji stuff. The only thing I liked was the Drunken Fist stuff, because I mean, come on, that was fire. The Gaara, yeah, the Gaara stuff with
well, did you like
Kimimaru.
strategy as much back then as a kid, though?
I can't really like get inside of my like little kid head, but I do feel like
yeah, you don't
like my thing with Neji, and I always wanted him to fight Sasuke, but I just wanted to see like the taijutsu.
Oh, yeah, dude, I wish too.
Yeah, like they took away the thing that he does that was so cool, and then like how he won, he just funneled his chakra through a string. It was like, that's kind of whack. Like I wanted to see him like throw some hands, dodge, parry, like box, and like throw. I don't know. I just wanted to see him go out. I wanted him to do like the Rock Lee stuff.
I will say,
the thing about that fight is that Kishimoto made the powers so well, like how they interact with each other, Neji and Kidomaru. I think this is probably like the second most interesting fight in terms of how the powers interact. The first one being Sasuke versus Deidara. It wasn't like a taijutsu fight because Kidomaru is a ranged fighter, but that's I think why it was so interesting, because Neji was out of his comfort zone, and it was like a 10 out of 10 high difficulty fight, I would say. Like,
I mean, I would say, Mello, to your point, I think we should have gone that fight and the Sasuke versus Neji. We should have just gone both.
Yeah, that's Sasuke versus Neji was, I think, set up from the very start with the whole like the Rock Lee stuff where he's like he's not the strongest Genin and stuff like that. Man, it was just such a missed opportunity.
It was like really a setup. It was just like the characters trying to get into the mindset of, okay, who do I want to battle, like kind of thing.
You know what's funny though? I think Rock Lee versus Neji would have been a better fight than Rock Lee versus Gaara, in my opinion, because all Gaara did was just stand there and just move sand around. The fight's pretty dope, but Rock Lee was doing so much of the lifting there in that fight. There's some strategic moments that I like, but it's all Rock Lee. So could you imagine like that taijutsu clash between like the Gentle Fist and that more like?
But that's like the point. Like Rock Lee is essentially sweating blood to win, and Gaara is just like standing there, arms crossed, not doing anything, and he beats
Shows
Rock
the
Lee.
difference in power.
It's not to suggest that the fight wasn't good though.
Narratively,
the contrast between Gaara and Lee is like the main point. Gaara has everything.
No, I think like this line of like conversation is fine, but that's not really the point I was making. Like I'm not saying the fight was bad. I'm just saying in comparison to, because I think Neji has like basically narratively the same thing Gaara has in terms of him being like this elite versus like the the underdog.
Elite.
Right. So I think narratively the same thing would apply. It's just that you would have got a far more entertaining fight when it comes to the choreography. Now, obviously, when you want to get someone into Naruto, it's like the old meme, show them the Neji versus Gaara fight. We all know it's peak. But I'm just saying, in comparison to the Rock Lee versus Neji, I think that probably would have been a better marquee match.
Well, I guess there's another problem, though. So in this hypothetical situation, like, is Hinata fighting Gaara? Okay. I mean, but,
oh yeah,
that could work actually.
Well, this would just be like writing. Just set it up in a way that it works out.
They can have the whole like I won't give up thing, but the problem is Neji did go for the kill on Hinata in the end. Gaara's doing it immediately, so Hinata's just going to die in that arc.
Yeah, but I think all of that could have been done like in the Forest of Death, even then, to where like Sasuke could have a clash with Neji there to a certain degree. Or the stuff with Hinata and Neji happens there. I mean, she doesn't really do much after that anyways, but get packed. So, I mean, the motivation for Naruto can still exist there. But all you would have to do is just write it in a way that makes it all make sense. But more so just the matchups, I think it works.
Instead of Lee fighting Sasuke at the beginning of the Chunin exams arc, like before even the first test, you could have just had a Neji fight him there and then just beat him up. And then later, if you want to have Neji versus Sasuke, it's sort of like a rematch there. So it's more set up that way. Because we didn't see much of Lee versus Sasuke
that would be pretty cool.
outside of that.
Or maybe a 2v2.
Fighting Sasuke there would be very out of character. he wouldn't be like looking for a confrontation before the exam, so he's more
Yeah,
level-headed than
like,
Rock Lee was.
That's what I was
Because
about to
Neji
say.
doesn't-
A 2v2. So if Rock Lee's instigating and then Neji gets inadvertently drawn into it, then you can get your match that way. It could be pretty
work, I
interesting.
guess.
And Rock Lee versus Gaara is also not Gaara versus Sasuke. It has to be there because Sasuke has to for Gaara versus Sasuke and him to learn Chidori and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, I will say though, as far as the Force of Death part goes, you would definitely have to change the characters' mindsets, because in the Force of Death, Neji, Lee, literally any of the Leaf villagers for that matter, aren't picking fights with the Leaf village. In fact, like Neji goes out of his way to just like not fight them. He's just like, yeah, I don't care. Like, Rock Lee helps out Team 7. Neji shows up. He's not planning on stealing the scroll from Team 7. You know what I mean? Like, they're not in it to beat each other up until they have to in the finals.
But isn't that fine though? Like we can change their motivations and their mindset. I'm fine with that.
You just have to just change their mind.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Like, I mean, even ever so slightly, because the whole idea of this conversation is a what if scenario, right? So we can definitely tweak some things to get them where we want them to be. I think,
yeah, I almost think having
Sasuke
Gaara
versus Neji is fine.
In the having Gaara have a big fight in the Force of Death almost might work better because Gaara is the type who will kill. So the stakes are actually raised more in the Force of Death.
The thing is, if you were to give Sasuke and Neji, it would probably have to be in the Forest of Death, because it wouldn't work in the arena exams, because there's a specific type of matchup that has to happen there, like Naruto has to fight Neji.
But there's also another, this is my personal problem, is that Neji stomps any version of Sasuke before the finals. Like
No,
the
yeah, and
final.
that's the thing. That's the thing. Like, it could have been a stomp for Sasuke to get a wake up call, and like, oh, okay, there's a guy that's way stronger than I am.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Wouldn't demand at all. Like,
Maybe,
and then
like a
maybe
clash.
you could
That's
work in
fine.